Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Today I'm going to be talking about Jimmy Savile. Yes, the programme on television called The Reckoning, with Steve Coogan playing the part of Jimmy Savile. Excellent stuff. You've really got to watch it, yeah? And it quite clearly illustrates how this guy got away with it. He was a cash cow, you see. He was actually bringing in massive audiences to the television and to the radio, to the dance halls. So everything he did, because of the overriding power of this man to generate money for himself and other people, he was allowed to get away with all this nonsense. Now, I know that it's hard for people to say, that wouldn't happen. You know, if I was there, I would stop it. I have been in these situations where you're dealing with somebody who is very high profile, who is actually attracting the crowds and making the money, and they are at the same time using their position to abuse and molest children. I was working in the 1990 with a guy called PJ Proby, who was a famous singer in the 60s, worked with the Beatles and all the rest of it. And whilst I was working with him, we were recording an album with a number of songs that I had written for him. You can see it's on YouTube. Don't just take my word for it. Have a look. Just type in PJ Proby, Stage of Fools, and there you'll see a recording of Proby singing the song that I wrote for him, and you'll see my name credited underneath as being the writer. And we're recording an album together, and the problem was that we got to the end of recording the album, right to the end. It had been a lot of hard work, very difficult to work with the man, because he was slightly eccentric, shall we say. A lot of these people are very eccentric. I mean, you've got to be a bit crazy to jump on stage in a velvet suit, rip your trousers and get your tattle out, which is what he did in 1960, January the 3rd, I think it was, 1965, at Croydon, near London. He was doing a performance, and he used to rip his trousers during the singing of the song Lonely Weekends. Lonely weekends, my pillows never dry. Then he used to rip his kecks. Of course, he ripped them a little bit too much during one performance, and out popped his todger. Anyway, I was working with him in 1990 recording this album, and as I say, we just got to the end of it. We'd recorded the album, 11 tracks. And he said to me one day, phoned me up and said, "John, you come and look at my new wife." I said, "You was a Texan, you know, spoke like that." Extremely strange way to speak, but that's how he spoke. So I went up to Bolton where he was, and he introduced me to this lady who was about 45 years old. I thought this was going to be his wife. I said, "Nice to meet you, my name's John. I've been managing Jim and recording his songs, and I said, I believe you're getting married." And Proby jumped up, shouts, "That's not my fucking wife." And out of the kitchen came an 11-year-old girl. He said, "This is my wife." 11-year-old girl, you know. And this 45-year-old woman, that was her mother. I said, "You quite happy with it?" "Oh, yeah," she said. "Jim's organised this beautiful hotel on this reception where he's going to get married, and then they go in on their honeymoon together." And she's 11-year-old, this girl. She was about 4'6". Seriously. So I said to this lady, I said, "Well, that's very good. You know," I said, "Have you got a copy of Jim's new album? Has he get?" No, she said, "I've not got anything like that." I said, "Well, give me your name and address, and I'll send you a copy in the post, because I'm getting the first copies from the manufacturers. You know, if he hasn't given you any recordings of it, you know, you can listen to it." "That's very kind of you," she says. She gave me a name and address, name of her daughter, all the rest of it. As soon as I got home, I rang up the social services department and reported him for abusing this child, grooming this child. And the strange thing was, when I got through to the duty officer at social services. She lived in Doncaster, actually. When I got through, the senior officer at the social services said, you do realise this is a very serious allegation that you're making? I said, yeah, I've given you my name and address. I said, now, if you don't mind, give me your name. Well, I said, well, what do you want my name for? I said, well, if I ever see that girl, that 11-year-old girl, anywhere near that man again, I shan't be reporting him to the social services. I shall be reporting to the police. And the name I'm going to be giving them is your name. Now, if you don't mind, give me your name. And then get on with your duties. Anyway, they must have done something, because the child was never seen anywhere near Proby again. And the next time I saw Proby, I went to his house, just stopped the car in front, and as I did so, he jumped out the front door with a bloody Bowie knife that must have been 18 inches long. I'll murder you, you bastard, screaming, shouting at me, interfering in my private life. I just drove off, and that was the end of it. Never worked together again. The problem was, of course, I'd created this album. I'd got distribution by BMG in Europe. I got the Terry Blood organisation. That was all through the UK. I got the albums pressed. They were all out in the shops, and here's this maniac shouting he's not gonna work with me anymore. He didn't promote the album, didn't sing the songs. We had requests from ITV, BBC, all the lot. In fact, we made some documentaries with them prior to this. One of them was This Week, with a guy called Dennis Toohey, who came to my house and listened to the songs. He said, forget PJ Proby. He said, I think this song here, Stage of Fools, is for Frank Sinatra. He said, and in 2 weeks' time I'm going on a cruise with Frank Sinatra. He said, if you give me a copy, I'll take it to him. So Dennis Toohey took a copy of Stage of Fools to Frank Sinatra, with a view to Frank Sinatra recording my song. Unfortunately, Frank Sinatra died shortly afterwards, so it was a curse, wasn't it? Anyway, that was dealing with people who have got power, and Proby was pulling in the money, you see. He was, at that time, he'd been out of it for 20 years, but I got him back. I got him a season at Blackpool, I got him TV shows, I got him on the radio, got his record in the shops. He was back on the swing of it, but unfortunately he was a pervert. And it's the same with Jimmy Savile. Exactly the same thing with Jimmy Savile. He was pulling in all the people to the dance halls. Watch this thing on the BBC. It's called The Reckoning. Yeah, Steve Coogan plays Jimmy Savile. Extremely good. He should get a BAFTA for that. Brilliant. And I've seen Jimmy Savile a few times back in the 60s, and Coogan's got him off to a T. And I believe that that's what happened. And of course, when they got allegations to the BBC and they called him in and he denied it, the BBC just swallowed it, because he was pulling in an audience, a massive audience. And then they gave him this strange programme, Jim'll Fix It, which introduced him to little children, which he was abusing the children who were going on to Jim'll Fix It. Watch that programme, The Reckoning. There's people who were actually abused by Savile telling their stories. And also, it wasn't just little girls. He was into interfering with patients in hospitals, Rampton, Broadmoor, all that, and going to Stoke Mandeville Hospital. It shows one scene in episode 2 where he's interviewing this lady who's got no feelings from the waist down because she's injured her spine, and he's interfering with her whilst supposedly interviewing. The man was an absolute pervert. I've not got to the part where he's manipulating the corpses. I mean, because the man was into necrophilia. That's having sex with dead bodies. The man was a pervert, but he was being protected, and he was also a 33rd degree Mason. He was highly intelligent. He was a member of Mensa, and he used all this abilities that he had. He wasn't particularly talented, but he had a lot of abilities to manipulate people, and he used all that to his best advantage. In fact, he managed to get himself an OBE and a knighthood, and he was fannying around with Mrs. Thatcher. You've got to watch it. It's incredible. I mean, and this is all done by trickery and by manipulating the public, and by managing to produce, you see, follow the money. And that's where it was. Anyway, that's my little rant about Savile. I mean, of course, we've got many others like that. We've got Gary Glitter, who's coming up for his parole. I mentioned that yesterday. These people abuse their authority, abuse their positions, and interfere with little children. And now we've got Keir Starmer standing up, and he's addressing the Labour Party conference, and he's telling them he never said anything about the fact that he had 15 complaints from the police about about Jimmy Savile interfering with children on his desk, and he said there isn't sufficient evidence to prosecute him. Really? 15? I mean, it might ring a little alarm bell. You know, if I got a complaint about an individual, a high-profile individual, and I was the Director of Public Prosecutions, I might say, hang on, this might just very well be suspect, so I'll look very carefully at it. If I got 2 complaints, I'd say, this is very strange, and they're both very similar, there must be something in it. But if I got 15 complaints... Anyway, it's that time of day, folks. You know, that time of day when you've got to ring the dinger. That's the song dinger for you, eh? The jails. Tales from the jails. They should be in the bloody jails, these people, shouldn't they? Yeah. Anyway, there was a programme on BBC Radio 4. I watched it. It was about W.H. Listen to it. It was W.H. Auden. It was on BBC Radio 4. And he wrote the poem that was featured in the film 4 Weddings and a Funeral. You may remember that. It was a very emotive kind of reading from that. W.H. Auden, it's called 12 Songs. Are you sitting comfortably? Let me get this over here a little bit here. Yeah, there we are. I think that's a bit better, yeah. I'll read you this. This is the poem from 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Stop all the clocks. Cut off the telephone. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos, and with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put crepe bows around the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out everyone. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Put away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can come to any good. Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Do like and subscribe. Thank you very much.